Planning a wedding and feeling overwhelmed? Simply Eloped makes it easy. With over 14,000 elopements and vow renewals planned and 37 stunning U.S. destinations, the planners at Simply Eloped have you covered. Their all-inclusive packages connect you with over 700 top-tier vendors, cutting stress, cost, and complexity. And no two packages are alike because they customize it for you. Your story deserves ease. Let them handle the hard stuff. You just show up and say, I do. Start at simplyeloped.com.
Today on CityCast DC, traffic circles. They're like the secret to getting around DC, and I've always thought of them as a way to separate the locals from the newbies, because we're the ones who know how to navigate them. Dan Reed is a city planner and is here to talk about how we wound up with all these circles on the map, and actually what's going to become of them in the years ahead. Today is Monday, December 8th. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC's talking about. Hey, before we get into the conversation, I want to encourage everyone to become a member of CityCast DC.
That's right. Executive producer Annie Reese here. And, we're really declaring 2026 the year of the local. And we have this really cool gift. If you become a CityCast member in the next week, there are these really beautiful artist designed postcards, hand painted by local artist Carlos Carmona Medina. And there's 4 different scenes that really encapsulate to us like some of the main kind of animating issues in DC and things we love about DC.
One is a picture of me.
Yeah. One is a beautiful portrait of Mike Schaefer.
Shirtless.
Oh, no, there's a Bridget. No, they are DC's iconic row houses. What else is there, Mike?
There's the Metro.
There's the Metro Brutalist masterpiece.
It's actually the Brutalist masterpiece, and it's got a puppy in it.
And there's a puppy. There are bike lanes. Celebrating one of our episodes, why DC is always fighting about bike lanes.
Right. And you don't have to love the bike lanes to love the postcard, because it's kind of cool looking.
It's very cool looking. And there's also one celebrating Petworth Porch Fest. But all of these together really encapsulate the community that is so vibrant in DC and that we all love to celebrate. And I think a postcard is such a cool way. You can send it to someone you love. You can put it on your fridge, an honored place on the fridge. You could frame it. It's both an art piece and a potential mail piece.
You could send it to someone you love, and the message you could write on the back is, I have purchased you a CityCast membership for the holidays. Congratulations.
See, now you're talking, Mike. Now you're talking. And you can purchase that membership at membership.citycast.fm/gifts. We have an option this year where you can gift a membership, like Mike is saying. So if you do membership.citycast.fm, that is how you yourself can join. Or if you just /gifts on the end of that, membership.citycast.fm/gifts, you can actually give someone either 6 months or a year of membership, which is really cool. Mike, you and I have talked about how we all have too much stuff. And God knows we all don't need gifts from Amazon or something. And so an experiential gift or something that someone might actually really use that helps them be more plugged into the city, that doesn't involve a random thing they don't need, I think is pretty cool.
Way better. And you would be supporting this work. And I always say, I just show up here and I talk pretty. But these guys, the team on CityCast, who produce the episodes, who book the episodes, who scour the community for interesting news that's important to anyone who lives here, not just the people who live in some neighborhood that we're talking about that day. They work their tails off, and your membership helps us keep doing what we do.
It does. So thank you so much. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm or membership.citycast.fm/gifts. Okay, back to your very interesting conversation, Mike.
Always. Dan, sight for sore eyes.
Hey, how are you?
I am glad to see you, my friend.
Yeah, it's been too long.
And in honor of it being too long, let's geek out for a second. I wanted to talk to you about one of the unique features of DC's topography, which is traffic circles. They seem to confound people who aren't from here. not only are you from here, but you used to work as an urban planner. So when you think of one of these DC traffic circles, which one comes to mind for you?
Oh gosh, I feel like the quintessential DC traffic circle would have to be DuPont Circle, right? It is an icon.
It is, even though it's like one of the ones that was kind of carved up for traffic.
Yes, it is less circle-y than it used to be.
But it is actually kind of one of the rare ones where like lots and lots of life goes on in the middle. Because you also have a lot of traffic circles in DC where not much happens in the middle.
I'm looking at you, Scott Circle.
You do not want to meet the furious gaze of Dan Reed. But wait, so listen, let's just like talk to me in urban planner terms. How are these things supposed to operate? What is their purpose?
Yeah, so first off, we should distinguish between like a traffic circle and a roundabout, right? The traffic.
What? They're different?
Yeah, they're different. They're different things.
Oh, I am over 50 years old, and I have only just learned this. I thought roundabout was just like a quaint British way of saying traffic circle.
Technically, no. Roundabouts tend to be smaller, and the rules are slightly different. With roundabouts, typically you are the primary rule of roundabout is you're supposed to yield to the traffic going around it, and they're often deployed as like a way to fix a normal like 4-way or 3-way intersection that doesn't work very well. So it's like roundabout.
But why?
Yeah.
Why a roundabout and not like an intersection with a light or a stop sign?
Sometimes it can be cheaper. Also, roundabouts reduce what traffic planners sometimes refer to as quote unquote conflicts, which are all of the different ways that two vehicles or a vehicle and a pedestrian can intersect with each other, to put it mildly.
Mm-hmm.
And roundabouts basically eliminate most of those because all the traffic inside of it are just going one direction.
Mm-hmm. So DC has a bunch of big traffic circles, and these go back to these predate the cars, they predate the bicycles, they go back to Pierre L'Enfant, the Frenchman who laid out the capital for this new country. What was trendy back then? Why did he pick this particular model with these sort of circles on avenues that radiate out?
So the L'Enfant plan sits in this grand tradition of city building that we also saw reflected in the Haussmann plan for Paris, these big grand boulevards,
Mm-hmm.
that you go down the big street and you see like the Arc de Triomphe at the end. Before that, we saw it in the plan for Annapolis, Maryland, where the State House sits in the middle of a circle and all of the different streets in the city sort of converge at it. So no matter where you are, you can look up on the hill and there it is. And that was inspired by city planning going all the way back to the Romans, right? The simplest way to put it is circle is where big important thing goes. And both so that people can get to the big important thing easily, and also so the important thing has sort of visual like hierarchy over the rest of the city. You put it in a circle and all the roads lead to it.
So at the time, like most of the capitals of countries in the world were like rutted with little lanes here and there, and they were super narrow, and there wasn't this sort of ceremonial space like this. And they built Washington as the city of these grand boulevards. And that weird thing, people didn't like it here because they were like, there's these grand boulevards and nothing's on them because it was brand new. But the city sort of grew into its traffic circles.
That's right. This is how we used to do it back in the day. You laid the city out first and you waited for all the stuff to fill in around it. And the idea was that DC would be the sort of grand capital, right? And befitting the capital of this fledgling nation, you needed a sense of monumentality. So people sort of appreciated how important it was going to be. So
the urban myth is that they put up these traffic circles because you could like also set up a cannon in them in case the people got up in arms, and that would be riot control. I think that's been conclusively debunked, but what do you know about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's true either. But it does make it easy to have sort of large gatherings and in the sort of modern day, right, to handle the traffic that a city has.
Mm-hmm.
In history, right, it would have been people and push carts and horses, and today it's cars and bikes and buses, and of course lots of people on foot.
So going back to they map out the city with these big monumental circles, and we now know them as these places that have statues in them and sort of formal stuff. How did they get built into that, and when?
I think a lot of these sites in the big circles and squares were identified as places where sort of important statues and icons could go, but it was decided later what actually was to go in them.
And this was all before the car. But so when you think of DC's traffic circles now, you think of a lot of them have like a weird lane in the middle, and it's totally confusing, and or a tunnel underneath. So you've talked about how these things got like hacked up starting in, I don't know, the 30s.
That's right. You know, as automobiles became more prevalent, a lot of these, I was going to say that these traffic circles couldn't handle all the cars, but I think what I mean to say is they couldn't handle a lot of cars going very quickly. And so you saw the underpasses being built under DuPont Circle, or is it, I think Scott Circle has, or is it Scott Circle or Thomas Circle that has, Thomas Circle that has the road going underneath it. Kind of like a little baby interchange, which was starting to become common in the US in the early 20th century. And in some cases, you would see the circle itself carved up to allow roads to sort of go in different directions around it. And so they became less circle-y and more like, how can we sort of fit sort of high volume traffic thoroughfares through it? And it's kind of a bummer, right? Because there's this tension between the circle as a place where people can come and gather versus circle as a traffic thoroughfare. And you can see in DC how challenging it is to navigate that tension.
So right, in the middle of a city where not everybody's got a lot of personal yard, traffic circles are often like a green space. You could, in theory, recreate in, have a picnic, walk your dog. Some of them get used that way. Others of them are like pretty desolate, and they're in fact kind of hard to get to the middle because there's like cars and stuff racing past you. What are some of the like hits and misses of our circle world?
Well, we already called out Scott Circle, which is unfortunate.
And remind people where that is.
This is 16th in Massachusetts.
And what happens there, or doesn't happen there?
The circle itself is really small, and there's a statue in it, of course. It's hard to get to it. And the way that the roads have these diagonal streets come in, it kind of forms these little awkward triangles around it. So that's challenging. Obviously, DuPont Circle is like the GOAT of traffic circles, even though it has also become this major traffic intersection as well. It has, one of DC's most iconic gathering spaces and hangouts. I also, having family in Petworth and having spent a lot of time there growing up, I really loved Grant and Sherman circles, which are relatively new, right? These are from when that neighborhood was laid out in the early 20th century, well outside of the L'Enfant plan. But they do work as these sort of large, nice neighborhood parks.
Right. And they're also different in that they're in the middle of like a residential area. It's not like the periphery of the circle has stores and restaurants and stuff like that. It's just houses, which is going to change the vibe.
Right. It's sort of like an extended front yard. And it also helps that the streets around them are like relatively smaller than the sort of major avenues that converge at like DuPont Circle or Logan Circle.
So why on Capitol Hill, all of a sudden, right, the epicenter of the city planning of Washington, all of a sudden you don't have circles, you got squares. Stanton Park and so on. Like what went wrong there?
Well, I think the square fills a similar role, right? It was meant as a destination, was meant to be monumental. And the way that the traffic moves around it is still circle-y. It's just sort of, you go around Lincoln Park, you're moving around it in a circle, but with right angles. It is not being able to patch Pierre Lafont into the podcast this morning. Different shape, same idea.
Right.
If you are still looking for a great gift to give to your family or your friends this holiday season, consider an Aura frame, which is the best way to stay connected with people you love. My dad is a photojournalist, and when I was growing up, we always had incredible photos of the family around the house. The ones that were kind of guaranteed to make us laugh and transport us back to those moments. And these days, we take so many photos on our phones, but then those photos often don't ever leave our phones or our Instagram pages. So enter Aura Frames. This is a frame that allows you to give a loved one a photo frame and then add your favorite pictures to it remotely. And you can even preload the photos before it ships so that the gift is ready to go when your loved one opens it. Plus, every frame comes prepackaged in a premium gift box with no price tag. You might be someone that lives near your family, but I'm not. And so I'm always looking for ways that I can create moments for our family to still feel like we're nearby. So for a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, which were named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code CityCast at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code CityCast. This deal is exclusive to listeners and frames sell it fast, so order yours now and get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is sponsored by Babbel. The idea of learning a new language can be scary. I felt overwhelmed by that. I bet you have too. I'm CityCast CEO David Plotz, and studies show that up to 90% of people trying to learn a new language give up. 90%. Fortunately, Babbel's built so it's really easy to get started and really easy to stick with it. They understand that people learn differently. So maybe you can dive into a podcast on Babbel when you don't feel like a quick lesson, or you can speak out loud to get practice in, or you can explore courses based on specific topics and even create your own customized review lists, all within the Babbel app. Babbel has made learning a language all about small steps with real wins and progress you can actually track and feel. Bite-sized lessons that fit easily into your daily routine and are also easy to remember. Just 10 minutes a day is enough to start seeing real results. I've been learning Spanish with Babbel, and it's helped when I've traveled in Mexico, and it helps me eavesdrop on my son and my girlfriend when they speak Spanish to try to fool me. No más, mi corazón. However you learn best, by listening, speaking, reading, or writing, Babbel adapts to your style and keeps you motivated with personalized learning plans, real-time feedback, and progress tracking. And right now, here's a special limited-time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
So if you think to like now or 2025, how are people supposed to, like, how is people's understanding like what you're supposed to do? How are you supposed to walk across them? How are you supposed to drive around them now compared with when they were launched and when they were redone?
So when these were built, it was very much like the big road enters the circle and you just sort of weave your way to whatever your destination is, right? There wouldn't have been a ton of signage. There would not have been a traffic signal. Those weren't invented until, I think, 1915. It was much more of a free-for-all, but in part, there were a lot fewer cars, right? Mm-hmm. If you were traveling this on foot or on a horse, it was much easier to navigate. And so today, you have many of these traffic circles like DuPont Circle or Logan Circle have stoplights within it, mm-hmm. right? So it's less of a circle and more like lots of little intersections next to each other. And that is an extremely frustrating experience for drivers. But it also means for the pedestrian, you have a lot more opportunities to cross the circle and get into the actual park mm-hmm. Than you would have otherwise.
Why do these things confound out-of-towners so much?
They have not, like we have, gotten to grow up with the magic of traffic circle. Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of newer American cities just did not have them, right? They did not have the same kind of city plan that LaFont did in DC. Many of them were much newer. And so traffic circles were not part of the like design vernacular. They just got regular intersection instead, or maybe like one big circle in the entire city.
Right, right. You mentioned Scott Circle being pretty grim. There have been a couple of these DC traffic circles, prominent ones, that have been kind of rescued from like 1970s grimness. Which are they, and is there more of that on the horizon?
Well, I feel like Thomas Circle has had like a little bit of a resurgence.
Explain what it was and what it's going to be.
Yeah, Thomas Circle is where 14th Street and Massachusetts Avenue meet. So it is sort of the between downtown and sort of very thriving 14th Street like area. It was generally fenced off and inaccessible, both like there was like fence around it, but also very difficult to reach from the side street. So it was pretty dead most of the time. And one of the big changes has been the circle itself has been reconfigured to simplify the movements that drivers make around it, which in turn creates more opportunities for pedestrian connections into the circle. They also added bike lanes. And so now it is much easier to walk into the circle, and so people can actually use it. And I wouldn't say it is particularly thriving compared to its much more sought-after neighbors, DuPont Circle and Logan Circle. But because it's still right in the center of the city, it could be one day with the right like activation and programming.
I really don't want to talk about bureaucracy today, but because it's DC, there is a weird anomaly here where most of the big traffic circles in DC are run by the National Park Service. So the people who run them are not, answerable to the local, to the city council that you vote for. And historically, that's been like a source of some tension where a city, it's going to use its open space, in the name of the recreation of the people who live there. The National Park Service has different priorities. They've, historic preservation and so on. And sort of providing ample recreation for the locals is not always the top of the list. So there was like this huge controversy where they like kicked out a gay bocce ball league from Logan Circle because Park Service rules, forbid organized sports or something. Is that like a part of this picture? And is there anything going to happen on that? Is like who runs the circles? Does that affect like the vibrance or not vibrance of the circles?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is the challenge, as you mentioned, right? The National Park Service has very different intentions with their land than DC Parks and Rec might have, right? Also, National Park Service is set up to run big monuments. They're doing Grand Canyon and Hetch Hetchy, right? And that's just
a very of a, you kids get off the lawn vibe.
Right. They are just set up. They're built different. And some of the few, even though they own most of the urban parks in DC, there are a few examples where Park Service has worked alongside bids, for example, to re-envision some of the downtown parks. Franklin Park is a really good example of a park that dates to the LaFont plan, was not super active, in part because of this impulse to like parks are supposed to be the conservation, right? But now has become this really lively, vibrant, exciting space that people want to be in part because of partnerships with the downtown DC bit.
Dan, is there anything we missed?
We didn't talk about the difference. Well, we talked about DC big traffic circles, but I would say like the difference between, what's the difference between like your DuPont Circle and like the suburban roundabout, right? Which is, I think, what most new modern day traffic circles are is usually a roundabout somewhere in the suburbs as an alternative to like a stoplight or a stop sign. They often don't have active green space in the middle. They're often too small, but Maryland in particular has really embraced the roundabout So you'll find them in lots of, especially the past 15 or 20 years. My parents' neighborhood has 3 roundabouts all on the same street now. And even though they've been in place for about 15 years, my dad will still go very far out of his way to avoid the roundabout 2 blocks from his house.
What does he think is going to happen there?
I don't know. It is much nicer to cross the street, though, than it was before.
Dan, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, as always.
All right, before we go, thank you to our new member, Charles P. Charles P. just became a member, and you can too. You can do that at membership.citycast.fm or membership.citycast.fm/gifts. And that's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.